evening. So live and everything will technical. Keep it moving. So the thing are live. Introduce you where you join. An interaction, and I really because I want everybody the live evening day of interest. Folks are still coming. Julian of live about later as the strategist at brand. And tonight I am about tonight. She's my truly brilliant. Oh, and I'm excited experience her about this like. I know in people in different, many of us have create. We're going to figure out what chapter of our life. I'm will give you information, take back and apply, create chaos without do introduction. Viola Llewellyn, Ms. Viola, about herself. Jump in conversation and just to introduce you our evening. I'm just going to give a how we actually, gosh, I think like at 8
years ago.
Speaking at the conference, had a really great conference, and I've just about move. Do it was great that way, but definitely is embrace one of us. How do you, from kind of clarity, moving forward, want Viola, her back, we can just conversation. Thank you for joining.
A pleasure. Can everybody hear me? I know the lines are tad choppy.
I think you're fine. I don't have a problem hearing, but I think.
How is everybody out there? It's so good to be with you, Julian. As you said, it's been 13, 14 years since we first met at the beginning of our businesses and our journeys. And at that time, we had every hope in the world that everything was going to go swimmingly, absolutely perfect. And it doesn't. It just doesn't.
That's very true. About, somebody said that it's, so breaking up, Vincent, yay!
Oh, there are people online?
There's about Vincent and everybody. Excuse me.
Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. Happy post-Valentine's Day. I think I can still just about hear you, Julian.
Okay, good. We already talked about, and we love to know you leave your, so we can greet you. Valentine or background is the moment that I met pre-Ovamba.
Yes.
And so through the journey, how now?
I think I heard you right. I'm so sorry about the line, everyone. I'm pretty sure it's on my end, but I think you're asking me what was my journey. All right. At the risk of being a talking head and boring everybody to pieces with what I did next, let me try to put it in context for you. I am a recklessly enthusiastic human being. And that's all very well and good, especially if you do know how to deal with your own disruptions and those disruptions that are from the exterior, that are sent or have the effect of destabilizing you. So when we first met 14 years ago, Ovamba had just started out. The African market was the darling of the emerging markets. Myself and my business partner at the time were very focused on creating FinTech solutions to help small and medium enterprises gain access to capital. And because of that, everything looked rosy. It looked excellent. I went out and I was so protected by my own ignorance that I had never stopped to count the cost of what this would do to me and my family. And in a way, that's good. So you move into the chaos stream with all the hope in the world, which is very protective, and you innocently believe that all of your plans are going to work out. But as you may know, in military parlance, no strategy will survive contact with the enemy. And the enemy in this case are the agents of chaos that are there in the realities of this world to disrupt and interrupt you when you really just need to grow or you haven't figured out what you ought to do. But throughout that entire journey, it became very clear that the purpose of success or the agents of success are not about avoiding failure. So we created Ovamba. I was one of the 13 women that they found to have raised more than $1 million for their own tech company. And it felt absolutely brilliant. My family, my husband, everybody was excited. Oh, wow, look what's happening to the Black women in the tech space out there. And then we went out, encountered business cycles in Africa, continued to raise capital, funded about $130 million worth of revenue in Central Africa, and started expanding into other countries, creating world-class innovations. We were one of the first people, we partnered with Microsoft to create natural language chatbots for Africans so that we could understand them from a cultural perspective. So I developed a niche of looking at alternative forms of finance and what happens when you sit at the crossroads of culture and finance. It was brilliant. Well, it all came to a crashing end with COVID. I thought I was a resilient woman. I thought I was in charge and I was in control of everything. I even had an arrogance about how well I was going to do. And when you're doing well and you have the cost of your experiences, your mistakes, your challenges, or maybe you're not listening too clearly to people, when you hit the first massive brick wall, not the little one, not the ones that you can bitch past, excuse my language, or that you can boss lady your way through, none of that. Not the glittering persona and the massive ego, but the ones that tell you you're in the wrong place at the wrong time, you're misaligned, your purpose is off, and no one likes what you've got to say because the market has shifted. Or in my case, you've been defrauded by a large Ponzi scheme ring, and now every promise that you've ever made to anyone will be broken. And when you take people like myself, whose architect, their human design, is to manifest and generate hope, ideas, and communicate, I leverage human beings to exist. People and relationships are my currency. So if one of them falls down or does not think well of me, or what I promised to another human being doesn't happen, I am generally torn apart. I had not stopped to examine this about myself. I would brush past it. But COVID made me sit down and count the cost, take a look at my life, and ask some very serious questions. And I hope that I do not offend anybody. But what actually ended up happening was the idea that I really wanted to die and kill myself. And because the chaos in my mind was like spaghetti, none of it was logical. It was very irrational. The outside around me had not changed. It was my de-evolution inside because I had not upgraded my coping skills or my ability to appraise situations correctly. And the next thing you know, I'm sitting at the bottom of the pit, surrounded by external and emotional chaos, financial chaos, reputational chaos, not family chaos. My family really wrapped themselves around me. I lost a lot of relationships, respect, and some of my reputation. The next level of chaos that ensued was that I had not grown internally to keep track of how I was pivoting as an older woman. All of the coping tools that I had in my 20s and my 30s and my 40s didn't work anymore. I know everybody's tired of hearing about menopause, but between that, the mental de-evolution, I used to call it melancholy, not depression, and everything else that was crowding in on me, I was no longer able to think. All of my ideas were evaporating inside of my skull. I would open my mouth to say something meaningful and it would just become gibberish. The inside of me was not matching my output. And I didn't have a filter or a net to understand and evaluate the inputs that were coming to me. I had become such a wide open spigot, a gateway, that I could no longer figure out what should be in, shouldn't be in, and I certainly had no ability to deflect and push back. I hit the lowest point of my life. It was even worse than when my son died. And in fact, his anniversary this past Saturday would have been 38 years that he passed away. When I sat at the bottom of that pit, swirling in chaos of my own making and from the outside, all I could think about was everything I'd lost. I was incapable of having hope or thinking about what to do next. I was frozen. Imagine what it's like to be frozen like a deer in headlights and everything is charging down at you. It was horrible, Julian.
Sure. Can you hear me?
We can hear you just about, and I think that some people can hear you as well.
Hopefully, we're going to, I think what is something for our goal, but they're not being transparent about it. So one, sharing that people know not alone. We all all right, so I'm cutting.
I'm so sorry, Julian. Do you have a live wire to plug into a phone line?
I'm looking for one. I'm gonna can hear you. You telling your story?
Sure, absolutely. And Julian, if it's a way to solve problems, if there's anything that you want to send to me, either in the chat or something, I can hear your questions and we can keep it going. Is that all right with you? All right. So I think that you asked me about what might prevent a person from being able to embrace such dangerous transparency to the outside world and to themselves. Everyone is different. I found out in the middle of that chaos that I was curating myself to an avatar and a persona that belonged to everybody else's idea of what success looks like. And I had lost track of me because I was so busy trying to be successful that I wasn't addressing my own growth. Now, one of the things that prevents people from being honest and transparent is guilt and shame. And believe me, I felt I was underneath an avalanche of that. Guilt and shame are horrific. They think, some people might think they keep them safe, and that the less anybody out there knows about on the inside, the better they will be able to weather what they're going through. That might work for some people, but for people like me, it doesn't. My purpose in life is to communicate. I was sitting in a business that required the way the company was enculturating, go off and do something and come back. I can't do that. I can't go tell it on the mountain. I've got to sit down in the valleys with people. And COVID kept people away from me. So my source of power and my energy, my authority, and my ability to express myself through contact and emotional communion with people was cut off. So I learned in this chaos what makes me tick. It gave me so much agency of myself that when I climbed out of that pit and took a long look at myself and realized that I actually had the control the whole time. I just was so wallowed in pain and fear and shame and anger and confusion that I didn't know how to remake myself from the ashes of what was left. And believe me, this thing destroyed me. At least I thought it did. So to climb out of the valley, I had to start communicating with my best friend. That's me. Um, the girl I used to be as a child, and I say this to everybody, when you're in the throes of chaos, the child in you may accidentally run amok. You need to find the adult in you to calm it down. When I was a kid, my dad made me read books on transactional analysis. And it's exciting because now that I've created the Tulle Box, it's helping me to use the right frameworks and structures to describe what I've gone through and what this means. So children, they run and hide, right? Climbing out of the valley meant I had to make adult decisions to control me because I was out of control. I had to get comfortable with making difficult decisions and appraisals about myself that might not want to hear, and then also be comfortable admitting it outside. It's similar to people who are alcoholics or are being interventioned. It has to be a day of reckoning, either for yourself or from people you trust and who love you. I have my husband, Vincent, brilliant. I've got my besties, Fiona, Michelle, Andrea, and I had you, Julian, those long, long walks of me saying, I don't actually want to kill myself. I just don't want to be alive. This kind of dissonance is a huge red flag because when you're in chaos, you are irrational, you're illogical, you may be emotional, and you start to do and make decisions that for sure are for the short term. You can't think long term. And when you can't think long term, you become impoverished spiritually and mentally. And that just makes the chaos thicker.
Yes. So.
You sound awesome now.
So let's talk about this first step that you took. I want to go through those things, and I know I'm probably still breaking up, but let's start with that. Okay, we'll take it. So let's talk about this first step that you took, Viola, because I think what you're saying is so powerful, and we want to give people specific things that they can do if they're in the similar place or know somebody who is.
Well, the first thing is to not rush to become better. It's a journey. And it isn't a journey to take you to a safe haven where everything's going to be okay again. It's not that. This is not a Motown love song, people. It really isn't. This is life. I do not know many systems in the world that do not require imbalance in order to move forward, unless it's semiconductors. And we are not semiconductors. We are human beings. We are flesh sacks of ridiculous emotional turmoil. So the first lesson that I extracted from my experience was I am obviously suffering from time blindness, which many of us did after the pandemic because we didn't have the markers and the milestones to tell us when things begin and end. So I realized I'm putting enormous pressure on myself to do things in time cycles that are not realistic. Things may take longer to do. You have to be patient. So the lessons from my experiences were pay attention to me and my true authority and what is real for me, not what other people say to me. Because as women, that's been the hallmark of our existence. Do what people say and you'll be a nice girl. Everything's going to be okay. Well, nice girls don't get to survive. They just don't. You have to become quite vicious with yourself sometimes if you need to bring some calm to corral things to a point where you can stop the horse from bucking. And that's what I had to do. I had to start sleeping at night. I had to stop going outside and encountering the elements. I had to stop isolating. I had to stop lying and saying everything's fantastic. No, it's not. I had to call some people and say, all your money is gone. I had to, yes, I had to look my family in the eye and say, the happy ever after isn't coming just yet. We may have to change the plan, but not the goal. So I learned from this experience that I might have to tango, I might have to shimmy and shake, And it doesn't matter the route that I take, as long as I am navigating the obstacles and the goal is visible, it's identifiable, I can relate to it, I can discuss it. Because when you're in chaos, it's very difficult to articulate and understand what's going on. So you have to stop. You almost have to let everything fall down around you, keep your ego out of it, which was very difficult for me, and accept that I have fallen down. But as my friend Michelle said to me, you'll get up again. This time you'll get onto a different platform.
Thank you for that. Let's talk about this next one.
Amping up my inner voice. You ever tried having a conversation with somebody who doesn't want to listen to you? That's us on a daily basis. We don't listen to ourselves when that still voice is telling you some scary truths, because we're so busy reaching for the next goalpost or something. Somebody, hold on a minute. The mission stays the same. Okay, I'm going to get to you, Sharon. Don't worry. But the mission stays the same if it is authentically part of what you sincerely and genuinely want to do. It's not, and in the case of many of us, especially Black women, we will adopt the dreams and the ambitions of individuals who look successful, thinking that emulating what is on the outside that everyone is pointing to as, yeah, that's great, is going to be who we are, what we want to do, and is representative of who we are. But when you keep doing that over different lifetime cycles, you become very fractured and you become very misaligned. So I had to keep the mission and listen to my inner voice. And what was guiding me was what keeps staying the same inside of me in those quiet moments when I'm most afraid. And the inner voice kept telling me, let go. I had to let go, but I was so afraid to let go because everybody said I was really good at what I was doing. And it is dangerous in this life to become really good at something that you're not passionate about.
So what were you not passionate about at that point? What did you realize?
I was not passionate about innovating technology because I had done that by approaching it from the perspective of people and culture. I didn't want to make widgets anymore. So I had to ask myself different questions. I had to frame things differently. I couldn't ask myself, what do you want to do when you grow up? I had to ask myself, what is it that I cannot live without doing?
That's a very different question. So thank you for framing that. That's a very different question. Okay, so let's talk about this. Staying calm amidst chaos. Ooh, how do you do that?
It's very hard. And you won't always get it right. The point isn't to become good at it or be perfect. The point is to understand what are your pivot mechanisms. I've always, years and years and years ago, I used to say to myself and to people, I've got a funny feeling that there are maybe some sort of cosmic cycle that governs our existence. What takes you around? I mean, if the world is pivoting on its axis 365 days a year, and we are of this physical, spiritual place, and we have a kinship with it, then we too have rhythms. Of course we do. They're circadian. But there are also business rhythms. There are monthly rhythms. There are mood rhythms. They are all entangled inside. That's the spaghetti of chaos when you don't know what thread to pull on. So staying calm in the midst of chaos for me was, I had to learn how to calm my mind down. Because I'm a natural responder and a communicator, I had to learn to shut up. Stop talking every time something happens. Learn to listen. Do not think that I can talk it away. I may have to stay and feel it. If I don't feel it, how can I know anything about what my intrinsic responses to what's going on? So that's how I learned to stay calm. I'm not a calm human being. I'm a horrifically excitable, enthusiastic, twitchy woman. And everything,
I do know that.
Yes, is a resounding yes, or it's a absolutely not. So in tempering this and becoming calm and taking a look around, that's when you taught me a different type of meditation. I hadn't done that. I also didn't realize, and I learned meditation and prayer are the same thing. being a submarine Catholic, as I call myself, and those are the individuals that only surface for funerals and weddings, I thought prayer was one thing and meditation was another. But right there in the middle, Julian, what I found was sincerely asking the universe to give me what I need to get through is a form of meditation. So taking a look at the things that made me happy.
Yes.
Taking a look at what is the horizon beyond this point right in front of me. Because if I stay with my nose to the grindstone, as they advise you, I can't put my head up to look over the hedgerow.
See what's coming.
Where are we going? Or what's coming at me? I couldn't keep being a process-oriented person because I'm a goal-oriented person. Some people are process-oriented. You ask my husband, I will attempt to kill a fruit fly with a bloody cannonball. It's a bit excessive.
I can see that. I can see that happening.
Yeah, I've learned to temper it just a bit. But the chaos that was real was what was going on in the geopolitical space, what was going on financial markets, what was going on with the groups that were defrauding Ovamba and using us to go out and raise money, but not give it to us, even though we had signed the contract. The chaos that was imagined was my catastrophic approach to I'm going down and I'm never going to get up. And I now know why. When your ego and your confidence is battered and bruised and people are angry with you, the child in you wants to be contrite and will even assist in punishing self to gratify the masses. This is what happens with Africans in a post-colonial era, which, as you know, you and I, Cameroonian, Ugandan, that is in our cultural and traditional DNA. Put your head down, be sorry, and look damn miserable. When I got pregnant, I was not allowed to tell anyone for many, many years because my family were worried that I would never get a good husband. I had accidentally learned how to fake being sorry. That is a graceful skill to have. I had to get rid of that because it stops you from being real.
Yes.
So when you've got imagined chaos, the one thing I learned to remind myself is in the last 5 minutes, nothing out there has changed. In the last 5 minutes, you've run the gamut of emotions. You are creating chaos, Viola. It's not out there. Calm down. Take a step back. Appraise the situation using words of just basic description. When you can articulate it clearly and then try to bang it up against your feelings, then you'll know what needs to be tempered down and what needs to be raised. And by all means, find someone accountable to you who will tell you the truth. My husband is one of those people, and my best friend Fiona, and my sisters Julie and Claire and Sylvia. They will tell me the truth.
Yes, that was powerful. Let's go on to this next one because you kind of talked about this in what you just said. So how, for those of us who overthink things and we're high 1 minute and low the next, how in the world do we embrace the natural rhythms and cycles of life? Never mind day to day.
Yeah. Well, when you are raised, especially as a girl, a woman, to be good and perfect, that's your yardstick for your conduct. But being good and perfect doesn't help you to grow. The natural rhythms and cycles of everyone's life is very specific to them. When I was at the worst of this, and a really good friend of mine, Tina Bagwell, introduced me to human design, it clicked like, oh my word. I was looking for language and a framework because it was always in there. I just didn't have a way to talk about it and communicate it. And I only knew there must be some cosmic cycles that govern what I do. But what I did know was that in all of my life, just when I think I'm the bomb bloody diggity, that's usually when I fall down really, really hard. My natural rhythm kicks off when I step out of humility because it's the opposite to my persona. I was raised by a father who made me very functionally arrogant by telling me there's nothing wrong with thinking you're better than other people if you can prove it. I'd stopped being able to prove it. Remember, I said all my coping skills weren't working anymore. I was in unknown territory. I had no idea what was going on. Every little thing I tried to get up and join the big dogs wasn't working. Diminished returns. So I have a better understanding of the rhythms and cycles of my life. And I know that my currency, my power, and my authority is communication and people. And I must never, ever injure that again. I also know that if I go too long without having a difficult conversation or taking a look at the things that are hurtful or painful or difficult, then I will keep on brushing that under the rug until it comes like a beast in the night. My nights and my sleep was so disrupted because I've been able to tamp it down in the daytime, but my subconscious would get me at night. And by the time I woke up, I was a shivering mess.
So how did you, especially when it comes to everything that goes on in your head, and like you said, just having a hard time resting at night, which so many of us can relate to. I know I've definitely been there. What were some specific things you did in terms of embracing the natural rhythms? Like what were some actions you took to really address that?
I took a look at the markers that happened at all of the situations in my life that were the most challenging. And then I also remembered, take a look at what goes well, what goes right. It's so easy to keep punishing, and thinking that the internal audit we do has got to be a scorecard of what you're getting wrong. That's not it. Jessica, you're absolutely right. It's not a constant climb and it's not linear. And there's nothing wrong with deciding I'm not running this race today, or this is not the race for me. So that was very important. So I started to notice the patterns for me, and the patterns were as such. If somebody comes to me with a brilliant idea, back in the day when I started out at IBM and all these other alternative companies, I was always the super groovy lieutenant in the machinery of someone else. And for a while, that's what I was good at. But what would happen was I would start to get dissatisfied and frustrated, and I didn't know why. And I would punish myself thinking, I lack focus, I lack dedication, I'm not consistent, I must work harder, I must find another model to emulate. That's not. The natural rhythms and cycles of my life are rooted in what I create and what influences I allow myself to be subjected to. I've learned the difference between my own inner voice and my passion for what someone says, especially when it's one of those hugely electrical conversations and the person is saying what you're thinking, like, we're friends, it's going to be perfect. Maybe not.
That's actually a really critical point that you made right there, because for those of us who are creatives and innovators and we like being, at the forefront of trends and all that, it goes back to what you're saying about listening to your inner voice, knowing the difference between something that you're being led to do and you feel very passionate about, and something that you're almost chasing because somebody kind of put that in your head or put that in front of you, and being able to distinguish between
know the difference. There's a specific difference. When it feels warm and fuzzy, super exciting. Intuition is uncomfortable. That drive of urgency, I gotta do it, I cannot stop till it's done. When you notice what your own response is, just a gentle trot down the path. For some of us, that's not a big enough yes. It has to be gut-wrenchingly uncomfortable for it to be something that is real and sits within my natural design or your natural design. Everybody has to be able to take inventory of, what am I like when I really want to do something? At the risk of sounding ridiculously shallow, even though I am kind of slightly shallow,
I don't think so, but go ahead.
Have learned that there is a flavor to my enthusiasm, and it is very similar to when I was younger in the club and you see a guy right over there looking at you, you're looking at them, you're like, oh yeah, baby, we can get cheeky with it, can't we? Yeah, you and me. And then you get to the middle of the dance floor and it's a bit of this and a bit of that. And it feels great. Your movement is great. However, when it feels like the old guy in the nightclub has come limping over to you to ask you to dance, you know you don't want to dance with him, right? Well, for me, it's like that. When that resounding, I have to, I want to. But now as an older woman, I'm okay with the yes. But this is how I'm going to do it. This is when I'm going to do it. And this is when I'm going to decide enough. It's time to transition. Sometimes the universe, the cosmos, God, whatever you want to call it, will keep gently nudging you. When you don't pay attention, you will be shoved.
Whew. You can say that again. I'm sure many of us have experienced that here.
Yep.
So let's, because I think that ties into the final point about how do you find clarity in chaos. So let's talk about adapting, because this one is probably one of the toughest ones for people to do.
Yeah. For me, it was all about reminding myself that the whole purpose of life, you cannot build your future in reverse. You can only examine the past. You can't run back in time to go get pieces you dropped on the floor. To adapt to change, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable, get used to it, and admit that this is not the same. I can see what the differences are, and this is how I'm going to use it for my end goal, because as we said earlier, your end goal hasn't changed. What you're adapting to is the rhythm and the direction. What you're adapting to are the unexpected arrival of situations that you may not have planned for, but they might be helpful. They might be usable. And so I adapted by learning to slow down. I turned 58 the other week. You and I have our birthdays.
Yes.
It was a great day for me because I really stopped to think, oh my word, I never thought I'd make it to 58. I've been such a ridiculous piece of work for much of my youth. How the heck did I get this far? And I realized it's because I actually had adapted to change and I had learned to leverage the lessons, but I had never stopped to congratulate myself for graduating. I was still operating as if I was a young, inexperienced person. I had not embraced this level of womanhood that says, I am unconsciously competent. I hadn't realized, and this is the same for many other people, that you cannot live this long and not be really, really good at something. It takes 10,000 hours of engaged practice to become an expert at anything whatsoever. So how on earth did I think I wasn't an expert at me? Why did I want to abdicate my power and my authority to someone else so that I could please them? Because I enjoy having the communion of deep, meaningful relationships. That's not the same. That's pleasing. That's pleasing people. That's not being honest. The adaptations that I've made today are becoming much better at knowing what to say no to, for example. And I want to say hello to Severin. I see you out there. And this is definitely for you. You cannot herd cats. You just can't. You've got to go out there and hunt down your own woolly mammoth. I often tell women, if you need a getaway car, you might have to build it yourself. It's not going to be parked outside. It's not a bloody Uber. Okay.
You have a way with words, Viola. You've always had a way with words.
You have to be able to say, I know I am my own mechanic. I know my own power tools. I know what vehicle I need for this phase of my life. And if I'm not sure, I know who I can trust. And if I can't find anyone who I can trust, I'm going to trust me to make mistakes and change and evolve because I know where I need to be. And I'm going to pay attention to those pings from the universe that say, you're getting it right. Keep going. After all, when you take a journey of 1,000 miles, you get in your car, you turn on the headlights, you're only going to see the first, 200 feet? Do you stop going? No, you don't. You reach a time in your life where you have adapted to the darkness. You've adapted to the lack of clear vision. You've adapted to knowing when to trust yourself. And you must by now have learned who's telling you rubbish. You might not have to tell them it's rubbish, but you should at least acknowledge and don't do the thing where, all right, I'm going to look into it. I'll do a bit of research. No, stand there and honestly say, I actually don't buy what you're saying, but I'll let you know if my opinion changes. What's the worst that's going to happen?
So you really have to learn how to speak up, really.
Speak up. Tell the truth to yourself first.
Tell the truth.
Be comfortable with your truth. Find the language that works for you, not the language of a talking head, myself included. Find your inner language. Make it yours. It will help and guide you.
So hopefully you can hear me okay. I know my signal is still kind of, I see it on
No, you're
screen.
brilliant right now.
Okay, fantastic. So I'm going to talk while I can. So now let's talk about this a little more, because you've gone from, this FinTech award-winning founder, and you're in a space of transition, which to me, knowing what I know, this is part of how you're leveraging your lessons as opportunities for growth. So let's talk about that transition, because I think there are a lot of people who are probably in a similar space, and how you did that and what it is that you're doing right now.
When I climbed out the pit and took a look at what was left of me, there were things of value that I could reconstitute to build the future I always thought I could have, but didn't know how to get or didn't think I could deserve. And the things that were left over were the relationships and the communication and the ability to feel comfortable sharing some rather difficult things about myself. Anybody who knows me knows if you don't want the answer, don't ask me, because I will tell you as much truth as I can stomach and maybe just a little bit more. So I took all my pain, all my mistakes, and I came to the conclusion that never in the history of the world have so many women lived so long with so many opportunities, but no guidebook. No one comes to, well, we think no one comes to Earth with a map of instructions. We actually do. We just don't know how to access it early enough in order to make the journey so glorious, but it's never too late. So the toolbox was, how do I take my micro experiences and my larger experiences, break them down into modules, into something that can be taught, discussed, and monetized. Let's be honest. Money occasionally helps to make the world go round. I wanted to make a living serving people again, but this time from a base of truth. My most powerful tool is my ability to tell you how I'm feeling and to recognize how you feel, and to find a way to bridge the space between you and me so that we can go do stuff together, even if it is only for 5 minutes, or in the case of my husband, 26 years. Thank you, Vanity. So that's, I just had to learn what's my rhythm, what's my direction. The toolbox is what I created when I spoke with you on all of those long walks, to help women show up in their lives aware, prepared, and ready, but this time earlier, because we often get to this point a little bit late. Can you imagine what it would be like if the women who I call the bouncers of the planet, because you can't get here without us, had an ability to understand self and teach our offspring exactly what it means to be human? I mean, the creative spark is very specific in women.
Yes, it is.
And it has to be celebrated and used and leveraged and supported and respected. So I've adapted and I've leveraged those lessons by creating the toolbox, partnering with people like yourself and many others, listening and learning the stories of women, and trying to create a safe space where truthfulness and honesty can be celebrated without individuals doing what we see on social media, which is comparing our insides to somebody else's outsides, because we're so busy with the pretty veneer on the shop front that we don't realize the back door is full of trash. Just full of trash.
That's real. That's real. And I do want to say, if you all want to start posting any questions you may have in the comments, go ahead and post those questions. We'll start answering those as we wrap up this part of the conversation and get ready to wrap up this live, which I always enjoy talking to Viola, and hopefully you all can see why, because she just listen. I've never heard anybody else refer to women as the bouncers of the planet, because you cannot get here without coming through us. So
you can take your Roe v. Wade and give it different consideration, whether you're for or against it. The fact is, we are the conduit.
Yes, that's very true. That is 100% true. So what is your hope? And what is the goal with the toolbox? What do you hope that women are able to get out of working with you via this new platform that you're building?
Community, real community, a different type of community, a community where our differences are respected, our commonalities are celebrated, where we talk about and we review the past from a perspective of benchmarking, not comparison, where we learn to become winners and learners, not winners and losers, where we become competitive in a healthy way that is natural to who we are without making us feel that we've abdicated something in our souls. So by using workshops, collecting the stories of women and posting them up on the Tulle Box as learning lessons, and then really creating discussions and conversation, one-on-one consulting, opening up the doorway to other experts. And when I say experts, not in just individuals certification, but individuals in our communities, like the grandmothers, the older aunties, and even the young girls, to be able to stand in the middle of this continuum called life and look backwards at young people and say, I need you to help me stay relevant. Because after the age of about 28 to 32, our plasticity, which we think is stultifying, which it isn't, we stop listening and taking on new ideas. But if the spirit is forever being renewed, then we should be taking on new ideas all the time.
100%. You have no argument for me there. So we do have a couple questions. I want to make sure we answer those. So Jessica asks, what do we do now with this hard-earned knowledge?
Go out, be adventurous, make mistakes, celebrate them, make all your mistakes be golden. Do not be so fearful and think that your path is for being perfect, correct, tidy, and straight. To go out there knowing that I'm going to get messed up, roughed up, but my mascara is still on, and that counts for something. So the gratitude for what is still left at the end of every cycle of change is to be celebrated. You have to go out and use this to live a life that feels absolutely wonderful so that you're comfortable in your skin.
And she has another question. So it's a good question. How can we learn to embrace our rhythm? I would love to be able to ease into it and embrace it. But that mindset, listen, that mindset will get you every time.
I know. And Tony, thank you for thanking me. I'm very happy to see you here as well. Jessica, one of the things that I would say is actually almost the opposite. I wanted to say it's maybe that's your journey, but that's a bit of a silly response to you. So let me try again. Be patient and loving to yourself and know that change is difficult. That's part of your rhythm. And it is to be accepted. We're not trying to change who we are intrinsically. We're trying to use our existing gifts to get what we want. The old mindset will always keep us pulling back. And that's why we have to be open to change and be observant that I tend to not want to change easily. So let me learn how to take things in bite-sized increments and calibrate and verify, am I still okay? Am I still all right? How much more discomfort can I take on? Because it's like flexing muscle. The more you do it, the better you get at it. So you embrace your rhythm by accepting that this is how I am. Some people are brilliant in the morning. Some people are great in the evening. I'm an all-day kind of a person, which is annoying for some. But
I'm similar.
You have to learn what your energy rhythms are and what drains you. It drains me to look at spreadsheets. I'm not a numeric person. If I have to talk about finance and numbers, I have to understand the rhythm and I have to talk about it with words. I can't even add, but that doesn't make me incapable of finance. You have to be able to say, I know that this is what it looks like, but this is my approach to it. Or this is my approach to this, and this is how I like to shape it when I get there. You embrace exactly who and what you are. And some of that answer might be in what were you like as a child? I was interviewing people in Cameroon for jobs. And I asked a guy, what did you want to be when you grew up? I said, I wanted to be a banker. And I told him, you're a bloody liar. No 4-year-old wants to be a banker. What the heck is wrong with you? Don't be so stupid. You don't want to be an astronaut? When you're a child, you have no limits to your imagination. You think everything is possible. And because of that, you're willing to embrace change, whether it's, I'm learning to walk, I fall down. When you fall down, the child just gets up again. Neither do they fight the fall. They just fall down, get back up.
Yes.
And you learn this rhythm over and over again. The repetitiveness of embracing change makes you very, very good. Yes, neuroplasticity, Sharon. Thank you.
So another question from Kwame. Hopefully I said that right.
Yes.
Is the platform
I,
dedicated to women who want to share their life stories?
for full clarity, Severin was one of my greatest teammates. He used to work for me. He is in Ivory Coast. It's so good for you to be
Oh,
still
nice.
awake. Yes, the answer to that, it's dedicated to women. There will be a piece for women to share their stories, but there'll also be a thing called the Tulle Box, where there will be lessons, TikToks, videos, and a sense of community around subject matter. So there'll be things on spirituality, finance, your careers, your professions, sexuality, your marriages, all of these things, because that's what we're made of. And the more the community grows, the more we'll be able to dip into that soup and pull out the things that many people are looking at. It's a case of a safe community for women who want to be brave about their mistakes and want to help others and want to get into difficult conversations that might be very difficult to have. But when you've had them, you are something better for it.
And they can be very
Yeah.
transformative. Thank you for that. So, question from Bridget. Do
Mm.
you rely on any affirmations to keep those dreaded imposter syndrome? You know, we actually had a great live with Lisa Medley a couple weeks ago
Yeah.
on this exact topic. And if you have any affirmations, do you mind sharing them? So let me just say this real quick before you answer the question. If you all, some of you all are asking about if the recording for this is available, just so you know, all of our recordings, all of our previous lives are all available on the JBK Brand Design LinkedIn page. If you just click on events, past events, you'll see all of the recordings there. So I do want, if you, for this question, Bridget, I'll have Viola answer it, but go back and watch the live that I did with Lisa Medley a couple weeks ago, because she broke down imposter syndrome and how to deal with it all the way.
I'm going to answer Bridget's question while also taking in Tracy Ray. You have my heart. What you've just said there, the exhaustion that visited me made me feel like I was underneath a bed of rocks and I could not get. I had a dark night of the soul. I didn't think I was going to make it. And it was hard. And I would not have made it if I stayed on the same path. The affirmations that I had to tap into were very hard to find because I'd lost track of who I was anymore. So in the end, it was reminding myself, you are great. You are going to be fine. And you are not alone. You are not alone. That affirmation works for me because I don't do well with isolation. Other affirmations have come to me from the videos that Julian has sent me and music. I had to start dancing again. I physically would get up and dance and work out till I felt good inside my body, because the whole thing about imposter syndrome and fear is you become uncomfortable in your skin. You become imprisoned in your circumstances. You want to escape your bones, but you cannot do that. You feel trapped. It's very frightening. So I had to remember to involve in touch.
Yes.
To touch people. I had to allow the outer elements to be on me. I had to find physical activities that made me feel strong and empowered, because that's important for me.
Yes.
And I started to listen to different types of music. I kept trying to think about, how do I create new neurons in my mind? Well, it's from doing something different, whether it's brushing my teeth with my left hand or doing these strange patterns, because I found after a while that my brain was not able to quickly jump into new things. So I had to physically teach myself again.
Almost jump started.
The grace that I had to give me was understanding that it's all different now. And when it's all different, it means you've got a blank slate. Just go for it.
Yeah. And actually, speaking to that, because I think this is something, I'm glad that you mentioned that you did more than one thing. I think it's so important to remember when we are going through a really, like she said, a dark night of the soul, you're in a valley, you don't know if you're going to come out. It's so important to realize it's going to take multiple things to get out of that valley, right? So to that end, I do want to share this link. It's called the rediscoverjoyguide.com. It is free. I created this guide because I recognized that, you know, when I was going through a lot of grief and loss and trauma in 2022, it wasn't just therapy. It wasn't just affirmations. It was a multitude of things that I had to do. And so this guide that I created to help other people who are going through it, it actually has 25 different practices that I used to get out of that valley and rediscover joy, which is I think the goal for all of us, we want to feel good. We want to feel like we're making progress, you know? So make sure you go and download this. Tracy and anybody else who is struggling with getting out of a really tough space. And I think to Viola's point, it's so important to connect with people as you're going through those things, because this is not something you're going to get through by yourself. I promise you. So let's see. Let me see if there's anybody else that had a question. Jessica says one of her most challenging times, she realized it was God giving her room to breathe and receive. Yes.
We think we have to fill every minute with something as a way of being grateful for the time afforded to us. This is a fallacy. It's not true. There are times to be still. There are times for action. There's a time to sit back. There's a time to help. You have to be able to know when those times are. And that's an individual journey. Maybe it's the meaning of life is figuring out what was the rhythm of your soul while you were here. What rhythm will take you to wherever you need to go next?
Yes.
It would be absolutely awful to be at the disco and everyone's doing the twist and you're doing something else. You're out of step. All of these things, they're all about finding the balance and the space and the place for things. It can be complex, but it can be done. And the first lesson is being very truthful and authentic with yourself. It was one of the hardest things I had that I learned to do in all of this was learning to say no to things, because I thought I have to say yes.
Boundaries.
I'm not thankful for the opportunities being given to me. Not everything is for me.
100%. That's what we call boundaries. So I do want to make sure I share with you all, and some of you who've been on these lives, you know about this, but especially for those of you who are really looking to connect with other like-minded women, who are looking to rediscover joy, because that is the theme for this year, and who want to hear more from Viola this April. So our team is hosting Emerge Live this April 19th to the 21st at the beautiful Gaylord National Resort. Wow. And it is an experience. It's an immersive retreat that we have put together, we've curated for visionary Black women who are looking to uncover purpose and rediscover joy. Because as we said earlier, life has been lifing for so many of us. But I'm hoping that from this conversation with Viola, you've gotten some tools and some information and some strategies that can help you put you back in the right direction of your goals and your purpose. But we're really creating this safe space for Black women to be able to support you in your personal and your professional development. And we're going to be having a lot of fun. Listen, just go to the website because there's just too much to tell you about. We're getting ready to close out, so I don't want to keep you all too much longer. We try to end by 8 o'clock latest EST, but I want to make sure I share that because I think there's so many of us who are, again, isolated. And one of the main goals of this experience is to connect with like-minded women who can support you in your goals. Some of you need to create a new vision for your lives. Like where you are, where you were before is not where you're looking to go, but you're not even sure what that looks like. Exactly. So definitely go to Emerge Live EXP. The prices do go up at the end of this month, and it is all inclusive. So make sure you check this out. Share this with somebody else who could really use it, because it is going to be a phenomenal experience. And I'm excited for everybody who is going to be joining us in April. And Viola, I'm going to pull up a couple more comments here. Excuse me. Thanks so much to you both. Okay, great. Yes, I'm so glad this has been helpful to you all. And Jessica says, even when what's coming to you is all good things, no is a necessary word.
It is.
100%, 100%. So Viola, I want to thank you for your transparency, because listen, it is not easy to talk about the challenges that you go through, especially when you're seen as a trailblazer by so many people. But this is a reality. And it's often the trailblazers that go through some of the toughest challenges, right? So I thank you as my friend, as my colleague, as one of my phenomenal speakers for Emerge Live in April. And as just somebody who really looks to pour into other women, other people, and help them grow using your own lessons. So I thank you. And I just want to remind everybody, especially if you're new to the live. We host this today. We did it on Thursday just because I was traveling, but every single Wednesday at 7 p.m. EST, we have our lives that we do, and these are Emerge Live Unfiltered conversations. As you saw, we get real with it. And so next week, I will be talking about 7 simple secrets to building a successful brand. I love everything branding. Looking forward to sharing this with you. It's what I do. And I'm really, again, especially for those who are in transition and trying to figure out where to go now. This is both for you, all of you who have a personal brand that you're trying to build or transform, or your business, or your organization, whatever that looks like. So make sure to join us again, or join me next week, 7 p.m. If you're on LinkedIn, the event is already live on there, so you can RSVP to get notification. But yes, to your point, you can subscribe to get notification. So I will be putting up a place where you can actually submit your email. But if you go to the LinkedIn page for JBK Brand Design and look under events, we actually have the next 2 up for you all to subscribe. And we just really enjoy sharing space and time with you all. We enjoy having these conversations and making them interactive, and just being able to support you all in your own growth and your own transformation, and often transition. So, Viola, I don't know if you have any closing words to share with folks before we log off.
I'm just so grateful to have been with all of you today and to talk about some difficult things and still feel the love and the support from amazing women. And all of you, let all of your mistakes be golden. Make sure that you remember that no matter what's actually going on, who you are is separate from that stuff. You are still a beautiful, worthy human being. And if you do suffer from imposter syndrome and you keep thinking you're not worthy, remember this: you would never go to another human being and tell them you're a load of crap, you're absolutely rubbish. So don't do it to yourself. Just don't.
Yes.
When you do it, catch yourself and stop, and don't punish yourself for, oh, I did it again. Just say, I'm so glad I stopped doing that. Let me go do something else.
That's powerful and a beautiful way to end this live. So you all, thank you again for joining us. This recording is going to be available, so please share it with others who you feel could really use the encouragement and the wisdom shared here. And we will see you next week. Have a good night, everyone.
Julian, thank you for this brilliant opportunity. You are the best. Thank you all.
Takes one to know one.
Cheers, love.